Well, a little bit about myself. I have been reviewing movies for my webzine Orbzine for the last 25 years. I've got about 3,500 movie reviews posted online, and now I'm just going to go through a few. Well, I'm making this video so I can show you a few of my reviews, and we'll start because this is Friday the 13th today. Well, still for the next few minutes anyway. We will review Friday the 13th. Now, this is a review actually of the original movie made in 1979. I wrote this review of it in March of 2002. And what I wrote 22 years ago is this is the original Friday the 13th with not a hockey mask in sight. Intended to reinvigorate the slasher genre, all this film did was spawn numerous low-budget sequels. The best comparison for this is with Halloween, a far superior film in all respects. To start with, we visit Camp Crystal Lake in the year 1958. The teenagers having a Bible class sing-along around the campfire, but when two of them sneak off for illicit sex, they are brutally slaughtered while the camera gives the killer's point of view. The only difference is that instead of John Carpenter's chilling music, we get the kill, kill, kill noise. The film flashes forward to the present day, circa 1981. Camp Crystal Lake is being reopened, and a new staff of teenagers, including Kevin Bacon from Tremors, are there to revamp the camp. Lots of fodder for the insane killer. There is one killing early on in a vain attempt to keep some kind of tension, but while the film is only 83 minutes long, most of the running time consists merely of establishing the climax. One scene exists solely to establish that there is a machete in the camp, while another only shows that there is an archery range with deadly arrows. In short, this is slow and tedious. Halloween creates genuine tension and suspense that leaves you on the edge of your seat, but this is just boring. Now, here we have Friday the 13th Part 2. This starts with the first movie's final girl. She has an extended flashback from the climax of the original film. This is necessary for us to understand has now been extended as the premise for an entire series of straight-to-video movies. Yes, somehow rather than go back to his grieving mother, Jason stayed alone in the woods and ate roadkill for a dozen years. 5 years later, a new camp starts up on Crystal Lake, with a whole new gang of teenagers interested in premarital sex. New Camp Crystal Lake, it is the Packanack Lake Region Counselor Training Center. The boss gives Jason's backstory as a campfire tale. This takes the story back to its roots as an urban myth created by camp counselors in upstate New York in the 1950s to stop the kids from wandering around after lights out. Perhaps he would have more luck if he stuck to his other story, the one about there being wild flesh-eating grizzly bears in the woods. Jason's identity is not yet fully established. He does not get the mask next movie, and he becomes undead a few films after that. At this stage, he is just a lurking presence, seen mostly as a shadow. However, this film moves a lot faster than the original and does not sacrifice pace for the benefit of suspense. The local sheriff, wearing a patch of Sebastopol County, seems to know that something is up in the area. However, just like the average cop in this kind of movie, he does not have the sense to know when he is walking into an ambush situation. Since none of the teenagers has a backstory, we do not know who the final girl is going to be until the third act has begun. Now, the third movie, where are we? Which ironically is the first one I reviewed back in November of 2000. Friday the 13th, Part 3. This starts at the end of the second film, where Jason wears a cloth sack over his head like the Elephant Man. He is left for dead, but as ever, the local trailer trash listened to a media broadcast that a mass murderer is on the loose in the area. They take this as an opportunity to investigate a mysterious figure loitering around their backyard. As always in this series, a group of teenagers take a holiday beside Crystal Lake. Jason is seen only in the shadows at first, although near the end he dons the famous hockey mask. The climax is taken from both the first and second films. So in other words, yeah, it's gotten pretty derivative already. Part 4 of 12, the final chapter. This starts with a campfire tale from Friday the 13th, Part 2, intercut with a selection of the best kills of the first 3 films. This is all the exposition necessary to know what the series is about. The story starts with the state police cleaning up the mess in the previous film. Rather than wait for the medical examiner to check the bodies, they just put Jason in an ambulance and ship him off to the Wessex County morgue. Unfortunately, the night shift staff do not put up much of a fight. Then he walks home in broad daylight. Please note, previously it was Sebastopol County, and they had a sheriff rather than state police. But anyway, who cares about continuity, right? A nice suburban family live in a nice house nearby. One of the kids is 12-year-old Tommy, played by Corey Feldman from The Goonies, who's obsessed with horror movies. Not in terms of the writing tropes, like in Scream, but in terms of latex prosthetics. However, he might just be Jason's nemesis. Some teenagers, including Crispin Glover from Back to the Future, get lost while out for a drive. They eventually get to their destination, the house next door to Tommy's family. This is an undefined distance from the lake, probably at least a mile or so, by the direct route through the woods. However, a couple of teenagers nip out for a midnight skinny dipping session, so it cannot be too far. That night, the local evening paper, the Wessex County Register, has a headline that states, "Mass murders, body missing." Hospital staff. However, a young man with a hunting rifle goes hiking in the woods. If he is hunting for Jason, he does not do a good job of it. He seems unfamiliar with concepts like camouflage and concealment. This may be an amateurish attempt to set a trap, but he also leaves his rifle lying around so it can be easily destroyed. A professional would never leave it more than 6 inches from his fingers. The director tries to create some suspense, so we do not see much of Jason on screen. Anyway, I didn't add any more than that just to avoid spoiling. But next movie, Part 5, A New Beginning, from 85. This starts with Tommy, still played by Corey Feldman from The Goonies, paying a visit to Jason's grave. Things end badly, but this certainly seems to have inspired the opening sequence for the next film. Someone starts to murder the local residents. Perhaps Tommy was driven insane by his obsession with Jason, or it might just be a copycat killer. The sheriff, not state police, the sheriff thinks it is Jason Voorhees himself, raised from the dead somehow. The mayor claims that Tommy was cremated. Someone starts to... No. The scares are by the book, with a standard jump scare used twice, once with a cat, once with a rabbit. The kills are pretty standard too, and is all pretty formulaic. The victims are mostly white rednecks. However, there's actually an African-American family in the village. They include Demon, played by Miguel A. Nunez Jr., who dresses like a very dated Michael Jackson. When the third act starts, Tommy is absent. This makes sense for a couple of reasons. First, he is the main suspect. Secondly, he beats up everyone who gets in his way, so we know he should stand a good chance of surviving. Instead, there is a final girl, a young blonde woman who looks like Kristen Bell, aka Veronica Mars. And since Tommy was mostly popular as a 12-year-old, there is a little 12-year-old black kid to fill the role. Part 6, Jason Lives, 1986. This is set a year or so after the events of the previous film, and Tommy is now played by his third actor. Presumably, he did not go full psycho as hinted in the previous film. He and a friend get out of the clinic and drive to Jason's grave. Yes, the mayor was wrong last time, and Jason was not cremated after all. Tommy insists they dig up Jason's grave, even though there was a lightning storm, but no rain. Unfortunately, Tommy's attempt to destroy the body backfires, and Jason's wormy, maggot-ridden skull regenerates enough tissue, including an eyeball, to go on another killing spree. Tommy tries to get help. However, nobody wants to believe that Jason can come back. The town of Crystal Lake has been renamed Forest Green, and summer camp is about to be reopened. The head counselor is Megan, played by Jennifer Cook. This was the 80s when the sheriff was a big man with a bushy mustache as opposed to the female standard sheriff of the 21st century, such as in Supernatural. Jason's kills tend to be off screen with minimal bloodshed. This is probably more a result of the low budget as opposed to deliberate dumbing down for a lower rating. The soundtrack includes a couple of 1980s rock songs. The theme song, He's Back, The Man Behind the Mask, and clips from this movie were used in the song's music video. However, unlike the disappointing Demons 1980, the rock songs are used sparingly and only when appropriate. The climax has another Tommy vs. Jason face-off. However, Megan is more than just a love interest. She fulfills the role of final girl. Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, from 1988. This starts with a montage of the best bits of the previous film. Yes, just in case any viewers start to watch the series at number 7. The story starts and unfortunately is a Friday. Tina Shepard, a young girl with a nylon blonde wig, goes all curry and wishes that her daddy was dead. Unfortunately, their house is beside Crystal Lake, and Jason Voorhees is chained to the bottom nearby. Property prices must have rocketed after the murder spree stopped. 10 years later, the girl, her mother brings her home from a mental hospital where her telekinesis was being analysed by a scientist. She's now added precognition to her skills. The scientist comes along to continue the research. Jason back instead. He is well rotted, with ribs and spine visible through rips in his shirt. Still, he was well decomposed at the start of the previous film. A bunch of teenagers hang out next door at a birthday party in a cabin in the woods. The old Christmas again, but nobody seems to have heard of Jason or the curse. The previous 3 films all centered around Tommy as the hero. His absence means that this film focuses on Jason, played by Kane Hodder, more in line with standard horror movie tropes. The final girl's telekinesis means she is strong enough to take a monster like Jason. Finally, we get to the third act. This is where most of the budget must have gone. In a fight, they demolish the entire interior of the house. We get to see Jason without a mask, and the prosthetics on Hodder are quite impressive. Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason takes Manhattan from the city skyline at night, with the World Trade Center prominently featured. Street crime also gets shown in the title sequence. Muggings and graffiti prominently shown. Yes, this is the dark Manhattan of the 1980s, a world away from the zero-tolerance era of the 1990s. On Crystal Lake, the boy gives the girl some helpful exposition around of the events of the first couple of movies. Unfortunately, their anchor ruptures power cable and revives Jason from his watery grave. Jason takes a cruise down the river to dockside somewhere that looks like the Canadian Rockies. A bunch of teenagers have a high school graduation party board a ship the MV Lazarus, en route to New York City. Jason hitches a ride. The final girl, that she was originally meant to be Tina from the previous film, but was downpowered because Tina became an uber powerful telekinetic. However, the new girl also has a backstory concerning Crystal Lake. Keeps having visions of a deformed boy drowning, apparently memories of what happened to her when she was younger. How this fits in the timeline is not explained because she is too young to be Jason's age. The supporting characters have storylines of their own, some of them more interesting than those of the final girl herself, the bossy headmaster aunt. The ship's captain is her love interest's father. The stereotypical American high schoolers are Canadian actors like Gordon Curry from Codename Eternity. Asian American actress Kelly Hu has a couple of scenes as a screen queen. The ship's deckhand, Alex Diakun, who you might recognize him from appearing in the X-Files as several different characters, he seems to have the sixth. Will this keep him alive, or will he have a crappy off-screen death? When the survivors realize there was a murderer aboard the ship, they try to hunt down whoever is responsible. Unfortunately, they split up to cover more ground, which means Jason just picks them off one at a time. Worse, Jason apparently is the part unseen through the woods in previous films due to his knowledge of secret underground tunnels. But there are no secret tunnels he can use aboard the ship. Finally, they got to Manhattan. Well, some stock footage of the skyline. The streets look more like Vancouver or somewhere, with the exception of a couple of scenes. It really does not have the right feel for Manhattan. Jason stays intent on killing the final girl and her love interest, even to the extent of ignoring other potential victims in the subway and in Times Square. Like a massive hulking fry cook, played by the actor who later played Jason in Freddy vs. Jason. The ending ties up Jason's story by totally destroying his body. Of course, the franchise started up again in the 1990s with Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, which led on to Freddy vs. Jason. Well, Jason, but is outside the continuity. No. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, which I originally reviewed in 2001, in August of 2001, from the look of it. Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. Dusk hits Camp Crystal Lake, and a beautiful Bea drives up to have a shower. This beautiful, the cliched scene where the babe is in the bathroom, messing about with the bathroom cabinet with a mirrored door before she gets in the shower. But nothing's going to happen. After all, in the previous movie, Jason took Manhattan and then got permanently killed, right? This film actually attempts to give an explanation for Jason's unkillability. His other bodies, but the reflection always shows the big guy in the boiler suit and mask. Jason makes way back to Camp Crystal Lake and the local town full of redneck assholes, and our protagonists, of course. The hero, John D. LeMay, looks to be 18 and is a nerdy, wimpy, you get the picture. Ray from Buck Rogers is a waitress and the mother of the ex-girlfriend who's custody of their daughter. This was made in 1993, and Ms. Gray is cast as a grandmother. The only one who really knows what's going on is an African-American bounty hunter hired by a TV show. The TV celebrity himself comes to town as the new boyfriend of the hero's ex-girlfriend. Jason isn't the only one who soaks unbelievable damage. The wimpy-looking hero gets multiple fractures to no ill effect. Watch out for the very last scene, which should let you know what the next sequel was planned as. Unfortunately, the crossover never happened because of copyright disputes. A pity. Please note, this is from 2001, and we go forward to 2003. Freddy vs. Jason. Freddy Krueger, played by Robert Englund from the series, The Dream Demon in the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise has a problem. The kids in Elm Street and the rest of us no longer dream. The town fathers drugged everyone to stop them from dreaming, and without dreams, Freddy cannot attack them. Freddy's strategy is simple. The final shot of Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, indicated he exists in the same universe as Jason Voorhees, now played by Ken Kurtzinger from Jason Takes Manhattan. Invite Jason, get him to wreak havoc. The final girl, Monica Keena, and her friends, Kelly Rowland and Catherine Isabel, team up with a helpful cop, Lachlan Monroe. Can they defeat both monsters? Or will the monsters take each other out? Well, let's see. What happens in Jason X? You know, let's do the remake next. The 2009 remake, which this is the 21st century. Everything's a bloody remake these days. This one is a recent remake of the 80s slasher where Max Killer chases one of the Winchester brothers from Supernatural. Sounds a bit like My Bloody Valentine, doesn't it? Yeah, because the Winchester brothers both did these damn remakes, and they're watchable, but still. Anyway, in this one, Jared Padalecki visits the ruins of Camp Crystal Lake to discover what happens to his sister, played by Amanda Rigetti, who went missing while camping there. He and a bunch of 20-something television actors playing college kids, including Ryan Hansen from Veronica Mars, get stopped by the machete-wielding freak. This is pretty much a wasted effort. It is a nasty little shocker full of plot holes and cliched characters. The humour of the original series is gone. This is the original series what Daniel Craig films are the original James Bond films. It's directed by Marcus Nisbell, who also did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake a few years ago. So if you like the TCM movie with Jessica Biel more than you like the original TCM, then maybe you'll like the Friday the 13th from 2009. And finally, Jason X. Where are we? The movie came out in 2001. I reviewed it in 2006. Yet another Jason film. Sean S. Cunningham produced this, leaving the directing to an unknown underling. Comes between The Final Friday and Freddy vs. Jason, both of which use supernatural explanations for Jason's powers. There's no point in trying to work out a proper chronology. It's almost as complex as the Halloween films. Jason, played by Kane Hodder, is a prisoner in Crystal Lake Research Center, run by Lexa Doig. Her boss, David Cronenberg, tries to transport Jason, but naturally the maniac escapes, probably using the teleportation skill he developed in Jason Takes Manhattan. Anyway, he slaughters everyone. Lexa manages to cryogenically freeze him and herself. 455 years later, the two corpuscles are recovered by archaeology students, including attractive robot Lisa Ryder. They are taken to a spaceship because Earth is uninhabitable, and Lexa is revived by nanites. Naturally, Jason slaughters everyone. The ship has guards who are picked off one at a time in inferior homage to aliens. Then he goes after Lexa and the students. This is actually one of the better films in this series. The budget is reasonable, as shown by the special effects and the acting. The script itself is quite self-knowing, with references and jokey lines. However, there's one major plot hole. Since unbelievable injuries can be healed by nanites, a murderer like Jason isn't really that scary anymore. I mean, I know they tried to put their own spin on it, but still. Anyway, thank you for joining me, and if you want to check out some of my movie reviews, the website is at orb-store.com/zine. That's Z-I-N-E. Thank you very much. Cheerio.